G'day, Bomber fans. That was a bit of a fizzer. I was expecting a really fun and energetic performance from both these teams, really, and we didn't get it. I don't know what we got. The Bombers were comfortably beaten by the Blues in the end. Zach was back for game 250, but a fair few of the boys weren't able to join him, it seems. Not an unexpected result, but a disappointing one regardless. So let's get into the game. Leave your votes in the comments below. Quarter-by-quarter recap. It was a slow start. Scoring was coming at a premium. Both teams were missing gettable chances. We got it started early through Peter Wright, but after that it was all Carlton. They put through 6 of the next 8 scores, 3 of them goals. Reece Unwin almost got us back out of our seats with a fantastic spin and shot on goal. Unfortunately, on review, it had clipped the post. We went into quarter time 2 goals down. The second term was just abysmal. It was horrific footy. We conceded 2 quick goals from the Carlton tools. Matt Guelphy would snap us a little bit closer, but that was the last highlight. He had Jade Gresham not even making the distance from 30, Dylan Shield running into an open goal, and we was lucky to get a behind out of it. It was really boring, low pressure, low skill quarter of footy, or half a footy really. We were 5 goals down at half time, having only scored 2 for the game. The third, we were looking promising early. Guelphy got his second of the game. Langford capped off an incredible Merrett tackle to get us back within 4 goals, but then some little things just went against us that forced heads to be dropped. We had multiple moments where players were building, and then they'd fall apart with bad ball use, and then the Blues would go back the other way and put one through the big sticks. The 3-quarter time score was 36-74. The game was all but lost. The final quarter, there was a bit of a spark again. Isaac Kako started to lift the energy for us. Peter Wright joined in on the act, and as it was in the past few quarters, we got the margin back to a decent spot, 20 points, but then the Blues steadied. They got some deflating goals, which sapped the energy not only out of the boys, but out of the crowd, and in the end, the Blues ran out winners in their final game by 34 points. Let's talk about it. Well, to start with, you got to say it was a pretty disappointing effort, I think, for most of the game. I feel like if this game was just a regular match against, even last week against St Kilda, let's say this performance was what we dished up last week against the Saints, I would probably be, even content. I'd be unhappy, but I'd find it easier to find positives given our personnel. And yes, we have so many players out, as we do every week. We had even more players out this week with Durham and Laverty being late outs before the game. But I think for a big milestone match like this, in Merrett's 250th, there just wasn't enough energy. I think both teams were kind of going at this at about 60%. It felt like there were clearly levels that both teams could go to. So whenever we had a bit of momentum, we had a spring in our step, we looked hungry and quicker. But when we didn't have momentum, when Carlton had the play or when it was 50-50, we just didn't look energetic enough. And that's the difference between a good team and a bad team for me. Bad teams find energy through obvious patches. A big goal gets everyone up and about, a big tackle, whatever it is. They find, or I guess that energy is given to them by an act. Whereas good teams, they look for the energy. When they need to, they find it. They're not when it's given to them. Notice how Geelong don't really shift gears that drastically. It's because they're usually expending their effort and stamina when they need to get the game back on terms. I just feel like on Thursday we were giving the most when we were the team playing better footy, which just, that's expected. But it's just not a good enough way to be playing in an important game. I'd say this was almost our most important game post-bye, and it just didn't seem like it at all. We weren't blown away, but we really should have been blown away if we were playing a better team. Since the injuries have struck this year, I've been talking a lot about the controllables and the uncontrollables. When you got an injury list like ours, 19 players out, I think, there are clearly things you can't control. Durham and Laverty late outs make it worse. So, yeah, Laverty out of the side meant our only key defender was a ruckman going up against Harry Mackay. So, some things we couldn't control. High kicks in our D50, guys like Hudson O'Keefe towering over us. Mackay towering over Pryor, O'Keefe over Blackiston, switch that around, sorry. But yeah, I think we can't control that. And then the midfield, we had Gresham in there full time, Kako, Roberts even at the end, which I liked. But yeah, we were convincingly beaten in the midfield, absolutely destroyed. Merrett back, but his hand was causing him issues and he couldn't play midfield. So really, the only midfielder that we had was Dylan Shield, who is going to be delisted next year. So, yeah, centre clearances were brutal. We were lining up with an engine room missing its best members, and it meant that Hewitt, Cripps, and Walsh, who are great players, had absolute field days. So 7 centre clearances to 17. The Blues were waltzing it out of centre bounces. We had 7 centre clearances. George Hewitt on his own had 6. It was an absolute mauling, and that is what I said could happen. If they smashed us in the guts, we were always going to lose this game of footy if that happened. happened, and that is what happened. You pair a midfield getting bullied with an undersized defence, and you're bound to have a bad result. So yeah, those two areas I would say are almost uncontrollable. It just got a bit too hard for the Bombers to contain things in there. We had patches, but whenever we needed to rotate players, it just got ugly. So yeah, the Blues had their way with us, but then you got you know, the controllables, like forward half pressure, which we just didn't get going, but should have. You had the ball use, which was deplorable at times. Goal kicking, you know, some horrific efforts that let us down. Think about how deflating that Gresham and Shield miss was, and even Perkins and Menzies. Like, all of those should have nailed their shots, and they didn't. Yeah, it's tough, because in every game, you're not going to be perfect. And for the Bombers to look good, we really do have to be better than we usually are, better than good. But we weren't. You know, we just weren't looking that good out there, which is actually rare in the last few weeks, because, I mean, I think this is probably our worst game since the Richmond loss. But yeah, because we weren't looking good, it meant that we were playing even poorer than a normal team with personnel would. So yeah, our opponents really are no good either, and we made them look pretty damn slick at times. But also, as negative as this game was, it was a good glimpse into what is to come with some of these kids yet again. So, you know, this year has been pretty hard to watch, but you've got a lot of good coming from it. Like, and realistically, aside from guys like Merrett and Redmond and Guelphy and probably some McGrath and some others, but yeah, like we had a few senior players play good games, not great, but good. But aside from that, it was the kids getting us going. So Kako in the last quarter really trying to inject energy into us, trying to get us up and about. Angus Clark probably played his best game since Dreamtime. Well, definitely did. I thought he was really good. Johnson in one quarter got 10 disposals at 100% efficiency. I want to see him play a full game. Even Roberts, you know, looking so ready again, and also getting time in the midfield, which is what I've been calling out for. Young Todd Goldstein, he was good. He's got a lot of promise, that guy. But no, there were some really good performances from the young crop, and as good as they looked, you had guys again who, I don't know, you struggle to see what's going to happen going forward. Like, obviously Shields not going to be with us next year. I thought he was okay. But yeah, you had Menzies, Gresham, players that just, like, I don't know what happens with them. Would they be playing if we had numbers? Probably not. Even guys like McMahon and Blackiston struggled, and I think games like this show us the levels between guys who are going to clearly take us forward and then guys who are around for the time being and in the squad because they can play decent footy. And the questions around who will be with us in the next 5 years, I'm going all in on guys like Clark and Roberts and Kako and Johnson. And then you've got guys like Unwin, Loyal and Nguyen who had big moments and showing signs. Perkins was good. It's just the rest that's a bit tougher to get a read on. You know, there are a few that played last night who probably won't be with us in the future or even next year. And most teams would have the luxury of not playing those players. That's the interesting thing about this, is that we're being forced to play guys who are not going to be in our vision going forward. They won't be with us next year, and that's just the brutal reality of our injury issue. We're giving games to guys that we're going to be delisting in a week's time. But yeah, I think with all the negatives to come from this game and the negative performances, we do have to acknowledge the individuals and how well some of the kids did. But what's so annoying about a game like this is that we have so many outs. I count 19, I think, with Durham and Laverty out before the game, which I'll chat about in a sec. But with a lineup like that, you really shouldn't be winning games of footy. So I'm not disappointed that we didn't win. The competition's close, so a good way to make it unclose is to... Unclose is not a word. A good way to make it uncompetitive, let's say that, is to get rid of all your best players. So we literally had no midfielders late in the game with Merrett resting forward. The only one we had was Shield, who is going to be delisted in a week. The backline had no key defenders. A forward line made up of babies. We shouldn't be getting close to teams. But the annoying thing is, we were not belted at all, and we played badly. And that should be something we're happy about. You know, 34 points in a bad performance is definitely not something to hate, because we really shouldn't be getting as close as we are. I thought we were clearly in the game for large parts of it, but the frustrating thing is that we weren't for long enough. And if we were, we could have caused a bit of a boil over. So, yeah, it's just a bit of an annoying game after last week and the week before, where we were so good against the Saints and so good against the Swans, even against the Cats. I thought we were really good against the Cats, but this week it just didn't feel like we were good. And clearly, if we were, we could could have gotten a lot closer than we did, because the Blues are probably levels below where they should be as well. But yeah, we weren't. And I guess just touching on the injuries before we get into the votes. So Laverde was still really sore after last week's big corky. He was originally cleared to play, but before the game, a fair bit before the game, was ruled out. And Durham as well. Like, I'm recording this pretty soon after the game, but I think it's his foot again, his ankle. It's his foot, sorry. It has plagued him all year. And at the time of recording, you know, I don't know if it was the foot that kept him out, but I wouldn't be surprised. So he's one of a few players who I know for a fact have had to really brave it this year and have been sore all year. Probably would have had more rests if we actually had numbers. But yeah, all in all, it's just tough, because you wanted a good performance, you know, for Merrett, and you can understand why we're not at our absolute best, but unfortunately, we really have to be at our absolute best to be competitive and win games of footy. Otherwise, we're not going to. So, some positives to take out of the game, 100%, as there have been for large parts of this year, but not a good performance in the grand scheme of things, which is disappointing. We've got one game left, just one more before the year ends. Let's get on to the votes. One vote to Angus Clark. I thought he showed a lot in space. He got plenty of the ball and played with real grit too. 27 touches, 560 metres gained, and some big efforts. 2 votes to Isaac Kako, the midfielder. He was really good. You know, provided a lot of energy on ground level, and also managed to hit the scoreboard at a really important time. That was his most complete game of the year. He looked really good. But 3 votes to the skipper in his 250th. He was just, yeah, Zach Merrett. He was hard at it. He was throwing his body around, not protecting that hand at all. 9 tackles. The next most for the Dons was Perkins with 4. He was just harder at it than anyone else on the field and deserved a lot more from his teammates. And the role player, I got to give him more love. You know, think about how dominant TDK has been at times this year. I want to give Goldie just a little bit more love to round out the season. I don't know if he plays next week against the Suns or next year, but he has been such a worry for us in a year where I really thought he would not play a single game. But yeah, a few others. McGrath was good. Guelphy was good. Wright was good. There were some good performances, just not enough great ones in a game where we needed them. But that is that. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Disappointing. I'm going to say it. It's a disappointing result. You know, there's been games where we've lost by 90 points, almost 100 points. You know, narrow wins against North Melbourne. But this one feels just a bit more disappointing than the others for some reason. So let me know why you think that is. I don't know if this is just me being a bit harsh because of some good performances. But yeah, that is that. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Just the one more game to go this year, and then we turn our attention to the draft and the trade period. That is all. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, and go Bombers.